Okay, Gari, you can get started.
Hi, so welcome to the Health Sciences Faculty Fest webinar. So just one more reminder to please keep your video and microphone off throughout the entirety of this webinar. There will also be a Q&A at the end, so if you have any questions throughout the entire webinar, please feel free to send them to Josephine, and we will try our best to answer them all at the end. However, if we don't have a chance to answer your question, no problem. Please send them to our way. We will have a contact list at the end of the webinar, so you can just screenshot that and just send us your questions, and we will try our best to answer them after. So again, welcome. So before we start, we will be doing a land acknowledgement of the land that McMaster sits on. So even though we are not all situated on campus right now, this is a land that we are all connected to. So McMaster University sits on the traditional territories of the Mississauga and Haudenosaunee nations, and within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. This agreement is also covenant with nature. Take what you need, leave something in the dish for others, and keep the dish clean. We share this acknowledgement with you today to urge everyone to reflect on who originally protected and cared for this land, how we came to be here, and the responsibilities we hold in caring for the land we share with the community. Especially in institutions of higher learning, it is our responsibility to create space where we can engage in conversations about the reality of Canadian history, challenge our dominant ideologies, and continue to call out injustices and inequalities that impede us from Indigenous justice and reconciliation. So we encourage everyone to take the time to learn and reflect on the history of the land that you live on. So we have a link attached here that you can check out if you're interested. So now I'll be giving the mic to Nagar and Jane, who will be going over the MSU as well as giving an introduction to Horizons.
Yeah, so I'm just going to quickly talk about what the McMaster Student Union is, also known as the MSU. So the MSU is a student organization that represents over 24,000 students. It's comprised of all undergraduate students enrolled in 18 units or more. So if you're a full-time student, the MSU already represents you. They run over 36 business units and services to help enhance student life. So business units are usually more like on-campus things, but there are some services that are specifically for first years, and they will all also be functioning online for this upcoming fall semester. So Horizons is also a service that's governed by the MSU, and Jane will quickly just explain what Horizons usually is and what we have adapted it to this year.
So our priority for the Horizons service is on first year transition. So usually what we do is we run a 3-day, 2-night leadership conference on campus. So students live in residence and there's upper year mentors who volunteer to be part of the conference. Happens every year, but unfortunately due to COVID-19, this summer, unfortunately, we were unable to host the in-person conference. So instead, we've been running alternate programming via Zoom. So these webinars that you guys have been attending. And also we have been offering sessions, which are something that we do during conference, but we've been doing them on our Instagram page. So Gari has actually been one of our sessions coordinators who have been running those sessions. So what that basically is are interactive activities that you can do at home that we usually would do during conference that would help you gain leadership skills or just any kind of transferable skills that will help you throughout your undergraduate career, but also your life in general. And something that we do in conference in addition to sessions is our Faculty Fest. We basically have faculty reps come up to campus for that one day during conference, and we would just have them host different activities for students and also build connections with them as well. So we're hoping that these webinars will be a good alternative and give you tons of information about your faculty.
Yeah, so this webinar is unfortunately our last of our weekly series. However, if you did not have a chance to view our webinars live, you can watch the recordings of them. So we have posted all of our webinars on the MSU Broadcast YouTube channel. So if you want to check them out, please feel free to do so. We have a link in our Instagram bio as well if you want to check it out through there. And if you would like to follow us, please feel free to do so. And again, if you have any questions that come up throughout this webinar, please again use the chat function to message Josephine, and we will try our best to answer them during the Q&A session. Okay, so before we start, we're just going to do a brief introduction of the members who are part of the Horizons team who will be participating in this webinar, as well as the representatives for health sciences following. So just to start off with the Horizons members, my name is Gari, my pronouns are she and her. I am one half of the sessions coordinators for Horizons, and I'm going into my 4th year of health sciences. And I will be a moderator for this webinar, so I'll just be kind of like doing the talking that I did at the beginning and then helping kind of like with the flow throughout this session.
Hi everyone, my name is Josephine. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the media and design coordinator for Horizons, and I'm also going to my 2nd year of health sciences. And I'll be helping moderate today. So if you guys have any questions throughout this webinar, feel free to message them to me, and then we'll be answering them all at the end.
Hi everyone, my name is Nagar, my pronouns are she, her. I am going into my 4th year of chemical biology co-op, and I will be one of the administrators for this webinar. So if you have any technical difficulties, feel free to use the chat function to message me, and I'll be able to help you.
My name is Jane. My pronouns are also she and her. I'm going into my last year of health sciences, and I'm the volunteer and logistics coordinator for Horizons. I'm also an administrator for this webinar. So again, technical difficulties, you can send a message my way.
Okay, so now we're going to introduce our lovely panelists.
Hey everyone, for those of you that I haven't met yet, although I see a lot of familiar names in the participants here, I'm Ben. I'm the Welcome Week coordinator for health sciences this year, along with Shabrit. And basically that just means that we are tasked with the job of helping you transition as smoothly as possible. I'm going to my 3rd year of the program, and I'm specialized in child health. A couple other things I've done in the past couple years at MAC. I've been involved with the Child Health Conference, and I was actually an LD with Horizons last year. Some of my hobbies are biking, swimming, running, making playlists, and intramurals when campus is open. I went for a run around Westdale yesterday. It was a lot of fun.
Hello, friends. Like Ben said, for those of you who haven't met us and haven't met me either, my name is Shabrit. My pronouns are she and her. I'm also in my 3rd year of BHSC, and I'm in the child health specialization. And I'm the other half of the Welcome Week coordinating team. So we're just putting together Welcome Week for you guys in an online format. We'll be able to give you guys more information soon. We're just confirming the entire schedule and what online events are going to look like. So you guys will hear about that very soon. Some other things I'm involved with on campus are the Women Gender Equity Network, also short form is WGEN. Also involved with MAC Dance and the Health Sciences Musicals. If you're ever wondering about any of those things, you can always reach out. Some of my hobbies include hip hop dance. I do that a lot in my free time, and I go to a dance studio. I like a lot of artsy stuff like drawing, singing, and I also like making TikToks with my siblings, which you might see more of as the summer continues. But yeah.
Cool. So I just had a really quick question. So how would students be figuring out or like finding out about the faculty-specific Welcome Week events?
Well, we're planning to invite all of the health science students to a Teams, and we're going to also release a tutorial on how to use Teams, but that will kind of be our hub for Welcome Week, where events will be hosted and where they can find news about different events. But the best places to look right now would be the Facebook group, the Facebook chat, as well as your email.
Sounds good. Okay, so before we kind of get into like the main stuff, we're just going to do an overview of what the Faculty of Health Sciences is.
All right, so faculty overview. The Bachelor of Health Sciences Honors Program, BHSC, uses a unique interdisciplinary approach to the study of health, wellness, and illness. It offers students an understanding of health from a biological, behavioral, and population-based perspective through the integration of foundational and health sciences. That was very long, very formal. You can also find this description on the BHSC website, but essentially, BHSC is made for any student who's interested in health in any form, shape, context. It can be like health related, it can be related to social determinants. Honestly, if you just have any passion for health, BHSC is for you. And we hope you guys are excited to get started in the program.
And I personally didn't even know much about that, like coming into my first year of health sciences. Like I didn't know how like interdisciplinary it is, but it's really interesting to see like the way and the different perspectives that they take on health. So it's not just like your typical biological lens, but it's like also like statistical, population based, even physiological, governmental too. So it's like really interesting that you can like get all those different perspectives through one program. Okay, so now we're going to move on to academic tips. This is definitely something that I think a lot of first years are concerned about, just because there's a lot of uncertainty coming from high school into university, especially with academic life. So hopefully your panelists can provide some tips and insights that can help to alleviate some of that uncertainty.
All right, so we're just going to provide you guys with some like very general as well as like faculty specific academic tips. I think when you guys enter your first week of classes, the first thing you're going to want to do is go through your course outline for each course. Right at the very beginning, in your course outline, you'll find any information you need about the course as a whole. Make sure to note down any assignment and midterm dates in your calendar. Those will already be in your course outline when you get it in your first week, and your prof will notify you if there's any changes to those dates. Profs and sometimes TAs have office hours in the course outline as well, and obviously easier said than done, but please take advantage of these office hours. I cannot stress it enough. Like, you'd be surprised how willing and like nice the TAs and profs feel when their students actually come to them after class asking questions. It kind of shows that you're genuinely interested in the course, and no question is like a dumb or weird question. So don't be afraid to reach out to them if you need help or just want to get to know the faculty. One exception to your courses in terms of course outlines, your inquiry course, which is Health Sci 1 EO6, will likely not have a course outline. Don't want to give away too many details. Inquiry is kind of like a little surprise that you get to experience in first year, but it will not have a course outline, depending on which core that you're in, but likely you won't have one right at the start. Another academic tip is to familiarize yourself with online platforms. Going into the fall term, we know that all classes are going to be taking place on all sorts of platforms like Microsoft Teams, Avenue to Learn, and probably other apps as well that your profs will inform you about. Teams you guys will get to use at first for Welcome Week as well. We have Welcome Week specific teams, and that'll kind of get you adjusted to all of its functions and how to use it. And you'll be using it a lot for your health science specific courses. Most of your courses might use Teams. There are other courses that might use platforms like Zoom or WebEx. It's honestly dependent on like the faculty that is providing the course. So you will see as you enter your first week of classes. Another really important online platform is Avenue to Learn. You guys might be familiar with it, might not yet, but totally fine. It'll be really important when you start your classes because all of your lectures, notes, assignment like drop boxes, and like where to take your quizzes and tests will be on Avenue to Learn. So that is something you want to stay familiar with as well. And both of these main platforms have apps as well. I highly recommend them downloading them on your phone. Like, bro, I like do not check my laptop when I'm in bed, and then if I get like a random notification at 10:30 p.m. like, bro, you forgot to do your quiz, it is very helpful to have the app on my phone and just like do what I need to do if it needs to get done quickly, you know.
Yeah,
to echo everything Shabrit said, especially with Teams and Avenue to Learn and Mosaic and Oscar Plus, there's a lot of like virtual platforms that Mac uses. So if right now you kind of want to like see how to navigate them, one of our Horizons webinars talks about that, and we kind of just take you through the basics of each of them. So if that's something you want to do, check out, I think it's webinar 3, and look at the recording for that.
Yeah, and like just to add on with the apps, like I highly recommend downloading them as well. With health science courses especially, there's going to be a lot of group work, and profs usually recommend you to do your group like chats through these platforms. So having the apps downloaded on your phone can be really helpful for like keeping those notifications on track and like staying up to date.
All right, the second half of our little academic tips. I already mentioned this before, but take advantage of your profs' office hours and consult your TAs for help. It can be intimidating at first, but totally worth it. Like, honestly, just kind of put yourself out there, ask any question that might be on your mind, and they'd be more than happy to help you because that's what they're there to do, right? They're there teach you, help you through the course, and help you through university, honestly. Like, they're there for anything that you need. Cell bio TAs specifically is for your like health science. This is kind of like a faculty specific tip. So for your like health science specific course, which is cell and molecular biology, your cell bio TAs are an amazing and severely underused resource. You'd be surprised how few questions they get and like how long they wait for you guys to like ask questions. You guys will have tutorials like during your cell bio classes. I'm not sure what format it will be in specifically, and hopefully you guys will get to know that during one of our academic events in Welcome Week, where we bring some of the faculty in, and hopefully your cell bio profs or TAs will give you more information on what cell bio is going to look like this year. But your TAs want to help you. That's kind of like your job. And honestly, like personally, when I was in first year, I was really scared to talk to the TAs because I thought my questions were like too simple, and it showed that like I was behind on content and stuff like that and stuff. But your TAs are students as well in the program. They understand what it's like to have a heavy course load, how easy it is to fall behind on courses. And if you're behind, don't be afraid to like call your TA, and they're there to help you. Another tip, practice tests are your best friend for midterm prep. So I know for chem specifically, you guys will be given practice tests, which are basically literally like the past midterms from previous years when the course was being taught, and they'll be uploaded to your Avenue to Learn like shortly before your midterms, and you guys can take a couple weeks to like use them as your question bank, as your learning content before your midterms, because they're the most representative of what your actual midterm and your final exam will look like when you take it. There are also upper year developed cell bio practice resources that are offered by like our Bachelor of Health Sciences Society's academic committee, and you'll find out more about like academic help sessions offered by our student society as you go through the semester. And one last kind of academic tip, yes, inquiry is supposed to be very weird at first. Of course, don't want to like spoil anything for you guys, but if you go into inquiry and you have no idea what's happening or what you're doing, that is a totally normal and typical reaction. So you're not doing anything wrong when you start inquiry.
Yeah, for sure. I remember when I came into first year, I was so confused about what inquiry was. And every single time we asked like a health sci rep what it was, they'd always say like, we can't explain it. Like there's just no way to explain what inquiry is. And I remember being so frustrated by that response. But I think like after doing inquiry, I think it makes a lot of sense just because everyone's experience is just so unique. And every class has such a different experience that you can't really define it in one sentence for everyone. So I think just having a curious mindset and an open mindset is kind of like the best way to really approach it. Okay, so something that's a very popular topic and concern that a lot of first years have is how to get involved, and not just specifically within the McMaster community in general, but they're also really interested on how to get involved within their faculty.
Right, so I think a couple good places to start are, of course, the BHSC Opportunities Facebook group. If you don't have Facebook yet, that would be, my advice to you would be check it out. Maybe get Facebook. A lot of great opportunities, clubs, advertisements are all posted in this group, and you can join once you're in your specific year group. So if you're in the 24 group, you should be able to join this group now. As well, on Avenue, we have a BHSC communities run by the office, and people can post opportunities there as well if you don't want to get Facebook. Shub has made a really helpful video on how to access that in our tutorial folder that we shared with you. Something I personally found very helpful to meet new people in health sciences and to get involved in the community was joining a BHSS committee. So I was sitting on the internal committee in my first and second year, and that was a really good chance to get to know people in my year and people in other years. And I helped organize buddy committee and things like that. That was a really good opportunity and kind of started me on this, I guess, journey to where I am now sitting on BHSS. And yeah, there's tons of clubs in the program as well. Like Shub said, she's involved with the musical, there's a fashion show, there's all these different really cool initiatives you would never think are in our program, but there's lots of creative minds and there's lots of different ways you can get involved.
Nice. So I just had a specific question. What is like the process or application process that you have to go through to kind of like join these faculty specific events or services?
Yeah, so a lot of the time, because they're student run, whoever's in charge of the execs of that club will post maybe a Google form that you would have to fill out if you're interested in applying, and there'd be a couple like short answer questions. And once you submit that, you might have to go through an interview as well. I know for the internal, committee in first year, I had to fill out an application and then go through an interview as well. So I think that's pretty typical.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to Mythbusters. So definitely every faculty at Mac kind of has their own fair share of like preconceived notions, and health science definitely one that has a lot of myths sort of surrounded by it. So hopefully your panelists can help to clarify a few of them and alleviate some of those myths.
Yeah,
so
this is always my favorite part. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, I was just going to go over this, but if you want to speak, you can do so.
Sure. So the question is, do I have to take a certain course for like insert school admission process, especially like in first year? Do I have to take that course? And our answer to that is always no. Personally, I found I was much more excited, involved, and I was able to do better in courses that I was actually interested in, courses that excited me, engaged me. In first year, I felt like I had to take certain courses because everyone else was, like physics and calculus, and those were not great experiences for me because I wasn't really into what I was learning. Whereas in this year, I've taken courses that I was really interested in, and even if they were considered harder or not as much of a bird course, it wasn't. It was a much more positive experience. So like it says here, you have lots of elective space in your second, third, and fourth year, and you can take first year electives at any point. And that being said, a lot of schools don't even have like med school. I know a lot of people worry about, and courses like physics and math we get asked about a lot, and those are things that you can teach yourself as well. It's not something that you necessarily have to take a course if you're not interested in that course. So my advice would be in first year, just take that time to explore your interests, make mistakes as well, and like just use it as like a year to feel out what you're interested in and how you learn and things like that.
Would you guys like to give some insight on some of like the electives that you guys took that you really enjoyed in your first year?
Yeah. So my favorite course that I've probably talked to everyone a lot about at this point was Health Age 1CC3. It's Intro to Mental Health and Illness, and it's a really, really great course. I found it to be really exciting. It was like a 3-hour night class when I took it, but I was still way more engaged than I was taking like math or physics. It was a course that really spoke to me, and the prof is just super engaging. Kind of similarly, I took Poli-Sci 1AB3, which is like a global politics course. And I found the prof to be super exciting as well for that. So I think that kind of make all the difference for sure. If you have a prof that's really passionate about what they're teaching, it tends to kind of reach you as well.
Yeah, for sure. Shabrit, would you like to share?
Yeah, sure. In my first year, I took English 1A03, which is no longer offered anymore, but there's other alternatives that have like similar course structures. I know there's like English 1F03. I don't really know the course codes off the top of my head. Really enjoyed it. If you're somebody who enjoys the writing aspect of like school evaluations and stuff like that, and you're into writing essays and like analyzing texts and stuff like that, English is a really enjoyable course you can take in university. And there's different types of English courses that are offered at Mac. Another elective I took was Psych 1X03. I know it's like super popular, and I think one piece of advice I can give is if you can't get into Psych 1X03, don't freak out. So many upper years like take in their like second, third, and fourth year as well. Like your electives are there to take throughout your university career. So if you don't get your first choice first year electives, it's not something to necessarily stress about because you have your entire undergrad to take what you like. My third elective was one of my favorites, honestly, probably my favorite course in first year, which was Anthropology 1AB3, the Race, Religion, Conflict Anthro. I really enjoyed it. I learned so many things I thought I didn't know. Like I remember when I came into first year, I was like, yeah, like I'm woke. I know about like racism, sexism, like all that stuff, haha. And then I realized there is so much to learn, and there's always so much more to learn with like social justice topics. And honestly, I highly recommend taking it if you're somebody who's interested in learning about not just like these kind of areas and like oppressive power structures, but also if you're interested in the social determinants of health, it really helps with that, forming that foundation for future courses that you might take as well. So I recommend taking Anthro 1AB3 too.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to what Shiv said. So for me, I took Sociology 1X03, I think it is, and Psych 1X03 as well. And both of those courses kind of broadened my perspective from just like the cell bio courses or chemistry courses that you might take in health sci. And there's a lot of interactions between different fields that's important to learn about. And I enjoyed those classes a lot more than I did courses that I felt were prerequisites. So I definitely recommend exploring all the different options that you may have in terms of first year electives, because there's a ton. And I'll link the list of all of the electives that you can take in the chat function in case anyone's curious and checking them out now.
Thank you for that. Okay, so we'll move on. So the next myth is this a pre-med program?
Okay, I just had to stop my video because I was getting a little frozen here. So of course, like it says on the screen, nope, I think Shub did a really good job of talking about how if you're interested in health from any sort of angle or perspective, this is a really great program to be in. There's lots of diverse pathways and a lot of freedom to kind of take it in a direction that you want to take it. Doesn't always have to be in a lab doing like cell biology or something like that. I know that's something that I will never want to do and something that I don't intend to do. And the program has given me a lot of freedom to kind of take it in a direction that I'm interested in. So there's lots of different diverse pathways. Of course, we're both in child health, which is a really cool opportunity to kind of look at things from a more, I would say, holistic point of view. The office also runs a Life After BHSC event where you can interact with lots of different alumni who have taken or have gone in various different directions, whether it be physicians or psychologists or things like that as well. And if you ever want to explore an option a little bit more or think about your future, a great way to start that process is talking to the academic advisors in the office. And they're always ready to kind of help you map that out. And like Jane just said, this changes a lot from time. Like I came into the program thinking I was interested in medicine and I was like, oh great, this is like a great program to be in if that's the case. And just over time, that's something that I've definitely gone back and forth on. And I found everyone's going to kind of, like when you come in, there's kind of this expectation that that's the direction everyone wants to go in, but lots of your peers around you will be kind of going back and forth on that as well and going in lots of different directions.
Mm-hmm. And health science is really a great program for you to kind of explore your interests, because I think it's one of the programs that has the most amount of electives that you have like after first year. Like you have an insane amount of electives, so really use that to kind of explore your interests and kind of figure out what you're really into. Okay, so that kind of concludes the content portion of this webinar. And so now we're just going to go on to the Q&A. So I'm going to pass it over to Josephine. So if you had any questions, you would have sent them to her. But if you still have some questions and you would like them answered, please feel free to send them to her.
Yeah, so the first question I got was, how can we get to know our teachers and build a good student-teacher relationship with them online?
I think considering that your fall term of course is online, it might seem even more intimidating to reach out to your profs or TAs or any other upper year peers in the program. Of course, being online, there are going to be barriers, but alongside those barriers, your faculty is coming up with ways to tackle them as well. Your profs and TAs will likely have an online version of their office hours, or at least that's kind of what we've heard around the block. They'll likely be hosting Zoom calls where you can just drop in and ask any questions that you're wondering. You can always email them and set up separate appointments. They're always super open to like one-on-one interaction, especially if you've taken the initiative to contact them yourself. Your TAs will have their tutorials during the class time. Like I know your cell bio class, it says in your schedule that you have like 6 hours of class or something ridiculous like that. I can assure you that is not 6 hours of lecture time for sure. So within that time, your TAs will likely host like an open tutorial time where you can just ask any questions related to the content and just get help with learning concepts. But overall, there will be open office hours just in an online environment and likely in like this kind of video call style.
Yeah, I think she made a good point in that the profs and the facilitators have already, like they've reached out to us and they've been working really hard to kind of think of different ways to engage you all. And I think we'll be pretty surprised with what they come up with. They're a creative bunch.
Yeah, so we had a good next question. Earlier we were talking about Avenue to Learn and how we can use it on our phone. Somebody just asked, what's the app name of A2L? It's actually kind of strange. I'll just go ahead and answer this. It's called Pulse. It's like an orange little app. I don't know why it's called Pulse, but that's just the application, that version that you can use on your phone. So yeah, definitely go check that out and
It
download
looks
that
like
on your phone.
it looks like that one.
Yeah. So the next question was, can I create a club halfway through the year? And how can I go about doing that? Are there any resources?
I think first of all, it would depend if it's a MSU club, like a school-wide club, or if it's a BHSC club. From what I remember from the MSU process, there's kind of 2 periods every year, once for fall and once for winter semester, where you can submit for your club to be ratified. I don't know much more than that. I know there's a whole process and forms and stuff to do. Yep, there's a link online. And the health site process is pretty similar. Trying to remember from my internal committee days. Does anyone have any other insight into this?
I know that the BHSS offers funding specific to creating new initiatives within BHSC. I would think before putting together a new club, make sure that that club doesn't already exist within the BHSC and MSU sphere as well. I know MAC is one of the universities in Canada that has the most extracurricular options at the moment. I think we have over 350 clubs at our university. So whatever club you might be thinking making might already be out there. But if there is a unique initiative that you do want to start within BHSC specifically, the Bachelor Health Sciences Society has funds set aside specifically for starting those new clubs, and you can always contact the chair or any member of BHSS to get more info on kind of how receiving those funds works.
If you want to see what kind of clubs are currently available, the list is always growing because new clubs are getting ratified each year. We have something called Clubza, so it's on the MSU website, and we'll send the link in the chat as well. And basically you can search for academic clubs or social issues clubs, or I don't even know the other categories, but there's tons of different religious clubs, for example. If you want to find a certain community on campus, they also will have a contact list that you can either email them or join their Facebook page to get more information. That's a good place to go to see what kind of things you might be interested in joining.
Something that I should have touched on earlier, because I know it was on these slides. One of our events that we're planning this year is to make up for the lack of Club Fest. So we're going to be inviting various BHSC clubs and initiatives to kind of create a booth in this online format. And that'll be, I think, on the Friday of Welcome Week, where you can come in and talk to representatives from lots of different BHSC clubs and get to know them.
Okay, so our next question was, do you know when we will find out who our BHSC buddy is? I'm not sure if anyone in this call might have the answer to that, but yeah, just putting it out there.
I was wondering about that today as well, but I'm not totally sure. You can probably reach out to Praveen and the internal committee if it's like a life or death question, but I would expect it soon. It shouldn't be too much longer, maybe a couple weeks.
Do you guys have any study tips for courses like cell bio or chemistry?
Well, something that I have found helpful for me is to, I started off when I had a kind of a slower laptop. I would print off lecture slides and write on top of them as I go, just adding on to what the prof was saying. Once I upgraded my laptop, I kind of had the same process where I would download slides and write on top of them. That was just kind of my specific thing, but I think the most important process of that studying, sorry, let me catch my breath here. The most important part of that process was going over the notes later on. So maybe in a couple of days or the night of, just going through your notes, writing them, making them concise, and it'll make coming back to them a lot easier, and it'll just be a good way to memorize them is to write them down as well. Something else that we talked about, a great resource is those practice tests. So whether it's like a past chem test or like a pyramid test, those are like a great way to kind of see where you're at and what needs to be worked on a little bit more. So if you're taking one of the chem pass tests, you might say, oh, I'm having trouble with this type of question. And that'll just be like, oh, okay, now I know where to go back and study.
I was just going to add on to something. So I'm not actually in health sci, I'm in chemistry, but in terms of studying for chem-specific courses, I was just going to echo what Ben mentioned with practice questions. They really are your like golden key in doing well in chemistry. And I think just like also, as mentioned before, using your TA office hours. So although they won't be in person, there will be virtual TA hours for chemistry as well. So once you realize what kind of questions you struggle with, it's really important to go back and go to T office hours or your prof office hours and figure out what you're struggling with. And then the more questions you will do, the more it'll become kind of like second nature. I think that goes for pretty much like most courses. But yeah, I just wanted to add that on.
A tip I would say for cell bio, especially knowing that everything is going online and a lot of your courses might just kind of be, you can just watch it at your own pace. Make sure that you're staying on top of everything. I know cell bio is something I always kind of left off, and then kind of before an assessment, I'd be rushing to cram it all, and that's really not a good idea. So just making sure you really actually block off that time to actually watch your lecture, make your notes, keep up with the material so that you don't get overwhelmed down the road.
Just to add on to the points Josephine was bringing up about cell bio, on top of like staying on top of the content, one thing I would really recommend is getting adjusted to the evaluation format. I know cell bio is one of those courses where you're going to encounter an evaluation style you've probably never seen before. Like in the past, I don't know if they're going to do this again this year, but you guys have evaluations called OCATs and NOCATs. So your OCAT is basically your one correct answer test. Your NOCAT is your no one correct answer test. So your OCAT is basically a crossword puzzle. It sounds really weird and maybe intimidating at first, but essentially you'll be given clues that kind of relate to the content you've been learning, kind of vaguely describe a term that's like essential to a concept that you learned in class, and you fill out the crossword puzzle within, I think, a 60-minute period. Of course, that might look different if you're online, and these evaluations may change just because you are doing at least the first term of cell bio online. Your other evaluation, which is called a NOCAT, could be different this year, is basically they'll give you a cell bio-based scenario. Maybe they'll describe a functioning process within the cell, like, ooh, here's like histamine, or here's some like protein kinases, like rapidly activating and stuff like that, and then something goes wrong in the scenario. And then you have to describe what you think went wrong and kind of provide your understanding of what's happening and kind of show proof that you understand what you're learning in class. So in terms of studying for these evaluations, I'd say personally I struggled a lot with NOCATs, and the biggest piece of advice I can give for studying for those is have conversations with your friends about concepts and try to explain them to each other. Use a lot of metaphors, use a lot of different ways of applying them, and take advantage of those upper year developed resources specifically for NOCATs, because these evaluations are so unique and they're not typical to like a typical biology course you might see at other universities or other programs.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think just what comes with these new types of evaluations is just there is an adjustment period, and there's that kind of like buffer period where you probably will make some mistakes, and it will feel a little bit weird and a little bit strange to be doing crosswords and writing paragraphs about biology. So I think just be, I guess to quote Margaret, be kind to yourself, but also just be reasonable, and you're allowed to make mistakes, and you're allowed to have a little bit of trouble adjusting to something brand new, and it's bound to happen, I think.
Just to add something about like general study tips, if you guys get the chance to watch the How to Study webinar, we had our representatives from our Student Success Center, which offer lots of, they're doing lots of virtual services now that used to be in person when we used to be on campus, about like how to study, how to write a multiple choice test. They'll give tips on how to write an essay, things like that. And those are all free resources that are available to you. So they talked more about that during our previous webinar. We also had Mac Academics, another MSU service that it's focused on studying. So you can check out their information from that webinar, and the link is in the chat function.
So our next question was kind of asking when you should start looking for extracurricular or volunteer opportunities. The question's kind of asking, should we start kind of right now during the summer, or should we wait for welcome week? Like, what's the timing?
I would say no rush. Things pop up all throughout the year. Every week there's a different club or initiative hiring or inviting you to a different event. Definitely don't worry about it just yet. I think enjoy the summer. Enjoy the sun if there's sun where you are. And, we'll introduce you to some clubs around Welcome Week. But even then, there's definitely no rush. No rush throughout any of first year either. You're going to be here for probably at least 4 years. There will be lots of chances to explore all the different clubs. But yeah, I think, once things get started, you probably won't see too much before Welcome Week. So maybe after Welcome Week, if you're really dying, that's when I would dying to look for clubs. that's when I would keep my eye out on the pages like BHSC opportunities and stuff like that.
Just to build on what Ben was saying, just to offer like a bit of like personal perspective, I remember when I was coming into first year, I like first saw like the BHSC opportunities Facebook group and stuff like that, and I was really overwhelmed with how much was being posted, and I was like, oh man, like should I be applying to these? I see my other first year friends, like not friends, but like other people in my cohort liking these posts. Are they applying too? Like, man, I should like dive into everything head first and like have 30 clubs that I'm doing. Like, please breathe, relax. You do not need to join clubs right at the beginning. I think that was the biggest mistake I made in my first semester of university. I joined way too many clubs and then got super burnt out. I saw myself struggling in courses just because I was dedicating a lot of time to extracurriculars, and I spread myself super thin in my first semester because I felt the need to join everything right away. And there were so many clubs I joined that I personally wasn't interested in. I forced myself to like join these super sciencey clubs, and I was like reading science articles for like no reason, even though I didn't even like want to do that. It was just something I thought I had to do. And so at the end of my first semester, I kind of reevaluated the clubs I was part of and ended up dropping a bunch of them, which is totally normal, by the way. Explore your interests and don't feel pressured to stay in a club just for the sake of commitment. If it's something you're not enjoying, just scrap it, because university is meant for you to explore things you actually enjoy. So don't feel the need to be committed to something for the purpose of doing it because everybody else is doing it. So in my second semester, first year, I just stuck with things I really enjoyed. And I'm still joining new things as I enter, like as I finish second year, as I'm entering my third year, still exploring the extracurricular options that are out there. And now I'm staying with things that I'm passionate with, like dance, singing, and performance-based stuff. So yeah.
I just want to touch on the opposite like experience. So in first year, I felt like I had too much on my plate, so I didn't join anything. And then same experience. So like when I saw like my peers starting to join more clubs, I felt like I was getting a little bit behind, which is a completely normal feeling. But once I started second year and I started joining more stuff that I was actually passionate about and not just for the sake of being in a club, I realized that I'm not, first of all, you're only in a race against yourself. So try not to compare yourself to your peers. I know it's harder to do than it is to say. But yeah, also just focus on trying to find something that's right for you. And if you feel like you're being overwhelmed and you have too much on your plate, then it's totally okay to kind of scale back and visit it again in the future in upper years.
I'm glad, Ganit, that you brought that up because I did the same thing. I just gave myself a semester to like ease into university, and then from there I started looking for things that I was interested in doing, and I just maintained like commitment to a couple of things instead of doing so many things. Sophia, could you add on to your experience?
Yes, I was going to say the exact same thing. And also, there's so many awesome like clubs that are directly like BHSC linked and related. But you also do spend a lot of time within people in your program and everything. So don't be scared to like join clubs that aren't necessarily like health sci linked. That's something I found I really liked. And I got to meet a lot like a diverse kind of group of students that aren't necessarily just from health sci. And I think a great way to find out about that is about during Clubs Fest. So traditionally that was in person on campus, but obviously doesn't look like that's going to happen this year. So they are working on making a virtual Clubs Fest where essentially like most of the clubs at Mac will show up with like a board and tell you about their club. And if you want to sign up, they'll take down your email. So keep an eye out, especially on that Facebook page, the 2024 page. There should be hopefully something coming up if it is still happening virtually.
So a question about, I guess, the fall and kind of courses, if you could provide a little insight into whether or not we'd be able to watch our lectures on our own time.
I think it's going to depend on the prof and the course. Like some courses like say chemistry or psych have always had some modules. So I think that'd be a pretty easy transition and there would be lots of available resources to go over on your own time. But there might be some courses that still require you to attend a lecture at a certain time in the day. If it comes down to an issue of time zone or you can't attend the certain time for whatever reason, the best course of action would be to reach out to your prof and let them know about your specific situation, and you might be able to work around that. But I think you'll probably see a mixture of the two options.
I think just to add on to that, there are two different types. I think there's a virtual and an online courses. I think the virtual ones are the ones that you go on your own pace. So the things will be provided and you can kind of like watch things as you wish. And then the online ones are the ones that like there will be a specific time, just like in your timetable, that you have to like go online somewhere and like watch it. I think in terms of recording stuff, profs will be very like lenient with that, just because like Ben said, people will be in like different time zones and things like that. So you should be able to record them, but I would recommend attending your lectures anyways. Even if you don't understand the first time, it usually helps to prime yourself, just like sitting through a lecture once, and then hopefully if it's recorded, you can sit through it again and it'll help you make like understand the concepts better.
Yeah, exactly what Nagar said, except the virtual online thing, it's like flipped. So virtual is the one that's usually like at that specific block time, and then online is kind of like you do it at your own pace. But I think most of the courses you're going to take, I want to say will say virtual, but still might be recorded. So Chem traditionally was recorded, just so y'all know. Things like tutorials though and inquiry, you're probably going to need to be present. But again, no idea what the profs are cooking this year. So you'll find out within kind of that first week of classes. They'll kind of go through the syllabus and tell you about what the course is going to look like.
Something really cool if you're planning on taking physics is they're doing labs that they'll send you a lab kit and then you'll do the lab at home. So that's kind of nice that you could do that, because then you're not required to go in person, especially if you're in terms of like the guidelines. So that's really cool. I took the course over the summer and it was virtual labs, which is nice.
So just a question on BHSC clubs. Are these just posted on the opportunities page on Facebook or the Health Sci Heartbeats page? Is there kind of like a central platform where you can see all of them or that kind of thing?
Yeah, just to touch on that, I would say Facebook, like the BHSC opportunities page, is where you'll find people posting when you can apply to the clubs or when they're holding their first meetings. I know a lot of the BHSC clubs have their own Facebook pages and Instagram pages. I know during Welcome Week as well, during our BHSC specific faculty fest, you'll get to see like hopefully every single club that BHSC is going to be offering this year, and you'll get to hear from each individual club how they're doing their activities during the online semester and what they're looking forward to in the winter semester as well. So you'll get like kind of a list and a wider perspective on all the clubs BHSC has definitely during Welcome Week. And I would say keep tabs on Facebook for applications that are being sent out as well.
What should we do if our TAs or our profs' office hours are during a time when we have another class or lecture?
I would say it's like highly, I want to say unlikely. Personally, I'm not the person scheduling y'all's classes and like the TA office hours. So like I want to say it'll be unlikely that'll happen. But in the case that it does, you can always message, or on Microsoft Teams, you can message your profs or TAs separately with any questions you might have, or even schedule a one-on-one meeting with them. Or you can always email them with anything that you're wondering, whether it's like a question related to class, maybe something that you can't get access to through online platforms. That might happen a lot as well. But they're pretty proactive in terms of being responsive on Microsoft Teams, as well as their email. Like it might get a little busy like right before midterms or right before an evaluation, so response times might get slower around then. But if you are unavailable during their office hours, you can always message or set up a separate time to meet with them.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I'm going to just maybe answer one or two more questions and then wrap this up. One of the questions was, where can I find the recording of past webinars? If somebody on the Horizons team wants to touch on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, I can touch on it. So we do have a link tree on our Instagram bio. So if you check out our Instagram, and then on our link tree, there's a link to all of our webinars that we've recorded. So this one will be recorded as well, and we will be posting it on our YouTube channel. So yeah, just check out our Instagram bio. A link is there.
If you just also search up like Horizons webinar MSU, like you'll be able to get them. So Ganit just sent it. It's on the MSU broadcast channel. All our past webinars are also on there. So if you're interested in looking at those, feel free to check them out.
Okay, so last question. A lot of people took, or I know a lot of people who took cell bio or other second year courses over the summer. I guess they're asking kind of what's the reason and benefit for that. I can kind of provide some input there. I did take one of my, I think it was 2 EO3, so inquiry biochemistry this summer. And that was honestly just to free up my term over the school year so I can take some other electives I was interested that aren't necessarily offered over the summer, giving me more options in elective space, honestly, take other courses I'm interested in.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest, I guess I would say advantage is that, I did the same this summer. I took one online course, and it just means that I'll have an extra elective spot in my second semester this year, which is nice. Other than that, it's often a pretty similar course, pretty similar structure, pretty similar work required from you. So I think it just all kind of depends on what your summer looks like and what your fall and winter look like as well. Maybe you want to work and be easier to, take some of the harder classes in the summer for you to free up later months. But I think it's kind of like an individual thing, and those courses, they tend to fill up fast as well. So I wouldn't put all of your chips like betting that you're going to get a spot, because a lot of the time it fills up quickly. But it can be nice to do.
So that concludes our webinar. So thank you all so much for coming. Again, please feel free to follow us at MSU Horizons to stay updated. And as I mentioned before, this webinar will be recorded, and the slides and all the recordings will be posted in our link in our bio on Instagram. It's a slide of all of our contact info, so please feel free to just screenshot it and send us any of your questions that you may have. If you didn't get them answered throughout this webinar, you can use any of our contact info to get them answered. Also, if you just have questions later on throughout the summer or during the year, you can also message us then as well.